His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki, Jai Om Vishnupad, Paramahansa Paramajakacharya, Austatera Satya Shri Shriman, His Divine Grace Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada ki, Bhakti Gauri Vaishnavinda ki, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki, Brahmshiko Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivas, Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki, Jagannath Subhaja Balaram ki, Gaur Nitai ki, Krishna Balaram ki, Radha Shamashindra ki, Srila Bhagavad Gita ki. All glories to the Son of the Devotees. All glories to the Son of the Devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Guru. First we will start with the invocation. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So, we are reading from the first chapter, first verse of Bhagavad Gita. We will read the Sanskrit and then we will repeat. Then we will read the verse and the purport, and then we will go back and discuss as many of the points as we can seem to get to. It should be easy to find. It's the first verse. So after we read it through, first we'll read the whole purport, and then you think of some of the points that I'm going to go back to discuss afterwards. So everybody found it? Dhritarashtra Uvacha Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetre Samaveta Yuyutsavaha Mamaka Pandavastraiva Kim Akurvata Sanjaya Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetre Samaveta Yuyutsavaha Mamaka Pandavastraiva Kim Akurvata Sanjaya Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetre Samaveta Yuyutsavaha Mamaka Pandavastraiva Kim Akurvata Sanjaya
Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetre Samaveta Yuyutsavaha Mamaka Pandavastraiva Kim Akurvata Sanjaya Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetre Mamaka Pandavastraiva Kim Akurvata Sanjaya Sanjaya Vacha Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetre Samaveta Yuyutsavaha Mamaka Pandavastraiva Kim Akurvata Sanjaya.
Ladies?
Dhritarashtra Uvacha
Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetre Samaveta
Yuyutsavaha
Mamaka Pandavastraiva Kim Akurvata Sanjaya
Kim Akurvata Sanjaya
Dhritarashtra Uvacha Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetre
Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetre
Samaveta Yuyutsavaha Mamaka Pandavastraiva
Mamaka Pandavastraiva
Kim Akurvata Sanjaya
Kim Akurvata Sanjaya
Dhritarashtra Uvacha King Dhritarashtra said, Dharmashetre, in the place of pilgrimage, Kurukshetre, in the place named Kurukshetra, Samaveta, assembled, Yuyutsavaha, desiring to fight, Mamakaha, my party sons, Pandavaha, the sons of Pandu, Cha, and Eva, certainly, Kim, what? Akurvata, did they do? Sanjaya, O Sanjaya. Dhritarashtra said, O Sanjaya, after my sons and the sons of Pandu assembled in the place of pilgrimage at Kurukshetra, desiring to fight, what did they do? So I'll read the purport and then we will come back. But listen to these carefully because I will ask you some of the questions to see if you picked up some of the purport here or some of what is going on in the beginning. We've already discussed the introduction, and now we see how this is starting here. We'll read the purport, and then we'll go back to discuss some of this. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The Bhagavad Gita is a widely read theistic science, summarized in the Gita Mahatmya, glorification of the Gita. There it says that one should read Bhagavad Gita very scrutinizingly with the help of a person who is a devotee of Sri Krishna and try to understand it without personally motivated interpretations. The example of clear understanding is there in the Bhagavad Gita itself. In the way the teaching is understood by Arjuna, who heard the Gita directly from the Lord. If someone is fortunate enough to understand the Bhagavad Gita in that line of specific succession without motivated interpretation, then he surpasses all studies of Vedic wisdom and all scriptures of the world. One will find in the Bhagavad Gita all that is contained in other scriptures, but the reader will also find things that are not found elsewhere. That is the specific standard of the Gita. It is the perfect theistic science because it is directly spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna. Topics discussed by Dhritarashtra and Sanjaya are described in the Mahabharata, form the basic principle of this great philosophy. It is understood that this philosophy evolved on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, which is a sacred place of pilgrimage from the immemorial time of the Vedic age. It was spoken by the Lord when he was personally present on this planet for the guidance of mankind. The word Dharmashetri, a place where religious principles are performed, is significant because on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, the Supreme Personality of Godhead was present on the side of Arjuna. Dhritarashtra, the father of the Kurus, was highly doubtful about the possibility of his son's ultimate victory. In his doubt, he inquired from his secretary Sanjaya, what did they do? He was confident that both his sons and the sons of his younger brother Pandu were assembled in that field of Kurukshetra for a determined engagement of war. Still, his inquiry is significant. He did not want to compromise between the cousins and the brothers, and he wanted to be sure of the fate of his sons on the battlefield. Because the battle was arranged to be fought at Kurukshetra, which is mentioned elsewhere in the Vedas as a place of worship, even for the denizens of heaven. Dhritarashtra became very fearful about the influence of the holy place on the outcome of the battle. He knew very well that this would influence Arjuna and the sons of Pandu favorably, because by nature they were all virtuous. Sanjaya was a student of Vyasa, and therefore by the mercy of Vyasa, Sanjaya was able to envision the battlefield of Kurukshetra, even while he was in the room with Dhritarashtra. And so Dhritarashtra asked him about the situation on the battlefield. Both the Pandavas and the sons of Dhritarashtra belonged to the same family, but Dhritarashtra's mind is disclosed herein. He deliberately claimed only his sons as Kurus, and he separated the sons of Pandu from the family heritage. One can thus understand the specific position of Dhritarashtra in his relationship with his nephews, the sons of Pandu. As in the paddy field, the unnecessary plants are taken out. So it is expected from the very beginning of these topics that in the religious field of Kurukshetra, where the father of religion, Sri Krishna, was present, the unwanted plants like Dhritarashtra's son, Duryodhana and others would be wiped out, and thoroughly religious persons headed by Yudhisthira would be established by the Lord. This is the significance of the word Dharmashetri and Kurushetri, apart from their historical and Vedic importance. There's a few perplexing ideas here that we'll cover if you can see them, how this starts out. One is, of course, as was brought out in the introduction, the idea here is that this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead speaking to his devotee. It isn't something about God. It isn't something for God. It is, as the title, Bhagavad Gita, Song of God. Bhagavan, of course, means someone who is not just powerful. Everyone has some power, some rich, some beauty, some fame, some renunciation, and some intelligence. But Krishna has all of those things in full. Oh, and he is here speaking this. He is speaking this knowledge on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Am I speaking into it?
Yeah.
He is speaking this knowledge, correct? So we just read some knowledge spoken by Krishna, correct? Who says yes?
That was Dhritarashtra.
Yes, Dhritarashtra Vacha. Doesn't this sound a little strange? It's supposed to be the Bhagavad Gita, the Song of God. You would think that either Krishna or God would speak first, or at least Arjuna would ask a question first, or at least the other devotees like Sanjaya, or as later it talks of things that Param Brahma Pavitram Param Bhavam Purusham, that Arjuna is saying that you are the supreme God, and then he later says that all the great sages, Ashita, Devala, Vyas, have proclaimed this of you. So you would think it would start with something like that. But who speaks the first verse? Isn't that kind of strange? What does this tell us? This is something we look at in the beginning. This is something I learned in 2012. We had the ISKCON Leadership Sangha. We have another one in 2014. And one of the things they said that you have to do in strategic planning is you have to see what your assets are, what abilities you have. And later on we will see in this chapter that the assets that the Pandavas have will be discussed. That they have Bhima and Yudhisthira and Arjuna, Nakula and Sahadeva and so many warriors. That we have to look at the assets, that what we have. But quite often, it is even more important first to look at what is against us. Just like when we are practicing our devotional service. Quite often we know that Krishna consciousness is the solution. But when we don't know what our anarthas are, it's like if a building is on fire and I call them to go to the MVT instead of to here. We haven't seen what our problems are, what is against us. So individually, we have to look at what is against us And what are those people doing and plotting? As a temple or organization, we have to see what things are against us and what those people are thinking of us first. This is a significant point that it starts out with. Not only what Dhritarashtra is analyzing the Pandavas and Dhritarashtra's strength, but what is the enemy thinking about us first? We've actually missed this in a few of our temples. In South Africa, many of the Africans are afraid to come to the temple because they've been told that there's a big snake in the moat. And I said, really? In a country like this where the people die of AIDS more than any country and it's the highest murder rate in the world, and people drive worse than anywhere, and you're worried about a snake that doesn't exist? But certain churches have planted this information so people will not want to come. Just like impersonalist philosophers have planted the information so that people will think God is impersonal and not personal. So as in the Ishopanishad, it says that we must culture knowledge and nescience side by side. We have to not only know our philosophy, but we have to know what the opposing elements are doing. So here, this starts out not with the Pandavas analyzing what their strength is, but seeing that Dhritarashtra is what is his intention and what he's doing. And it's kind of puzzling when he speaks this, isn't it? We'll get into that as we read through this, why this is a little puzzling. As it says here, one should read the Bhagavad Gita very scrutinizingly with the help of a person who is a devotee of Sri Krishna. Dhritarashtra found someone like that, didn't he? Who is he asking here? He asked Sanjaya. Is Sanjaya a demon or just an average materialist, or is he a great realized devotee? How do we know that? What's that? How else do we know that? Well, how else?
That's how he got the power to see from the start.
What could he see?
The battlefield.
While he was on the battlefield? He could see it from somewhere else, right? Is this possible? Somebody told me a story that you can beam an object to outer space and then beam it back and watch it on the box, but that isn't possible. Because my theory is this: if you can't see it, it doesn't exist. If that's true, then neither the television nor the cell phone can work, because you have television waves and the cell phone wave. You can't see it, but it actually works. So if that theory were true, that wouldn't work. So Sanjaya is a realized devotee, and Dhritarashtra approached him. So he must have been able to understand the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita. It's different because he's asking him. He's asking him. He's asking a great devotee. It's just like, let's say, who's the famous cricket player? Oh, Sachin Tendulkar. Say he comes in and you want to learn cricket, but you ask from him about music, and you ask from him how things are going in Delhi, and you ask all these other things, and you spend a whole hour. And then someone says, well, did you learn cricket? No, he must not be very good at it because he didn't teach me anything. So that must not mean he's not any good at it, right? Is that what it means? He may be the qualified teacher of cricket, right? But if you don't ask the right questions, if you're not doing like it is here, very scrutinizingly, with the help of a person who is a devotee of Sri Krishna, the person he has approached the right person. It is kind of like the story, the woman was walking, carrying the big bundle of sticks, and she dropped the big bundle of sticks. She says, please God, help me. And God appears. Says, I'm here, what can I do for you to help you? Just put that bundle back on my back. And so he puts the bundle back on her back and she goes on her way. So as we were reading earlier in introduction, our attitude has to be something right. We have to try to at least want some of this. Even as we're a little inquisitive. Because Sanjay here is inquiring from a pure devotee about the battlefield. But what is he asking? What is the purpose of religion? Who is the personality of Godhead? He's saying, what did my sons and the sons of Pandu do on this field of Kurukshetra? So what does that indicate? It indicates that he knows that even though he wants his sons to win, they are not religious. And because it's on the field of Kurukshetra, they will lose. Still, he wants to go ahead, doesn't he? Earlier on, Duryodhana, his son, he'd been insulted because he went to the Pandavas' palace and they had kind of tricky things where the land appeared like water and the water appeared like land. So he walked across what he thought was land and fell in the water, and they laughed at him and he was very upset. You know, Krishna talked to him and was trying to negotiate with him. Krishna shows the perfect example in the war. He didn't just fight a war. First he tried to negotiate, and then he tried to talk sense to them, and the Pandavas asked for less and less and less. They wouldn't give them anything. And then Krishna actually showed Duryodhana part of his universal form. So now Duryodhana gets to see that Krishna is God. So what does this tell you? If Krishna is God, who's going to get what they want? Who is? I am? No, but besides anything else, Duryodhana sees that Krishna shows his universal form and he's God. And Duryodhana has a different desire. So who's going to get what they want? Duryodhana or Krishna? But some of us are so obstinate. We have the philosophy of life. We are so attached to getting a certain sense gratification, wanting a certain sense object, wanting a certain power, that we don't care what the result will be. We don't care if we hurt people along the way. We don't even care if it's actually possible. We just try for it anyway. I'm sure none of us have ever tried to get something that wasn't possible, have they? Do they call this fantasizing? Oh, I want that so bad. How many of this, some of the I haven't seen any Indian movies because I went with Prabhupada to J. Om Prakash's house, and he gave a talk, and J. Om Prakash was the biggest movie producer in India. He just finished that movie, Hati Mera Sati, which everybody knew back then. But all the big Indian movie stars became life members. Devanand and Rajesh Khanna and the Kapoor brothers, which I think so many actors have come from them. But J. Om Prakash says, I'll tell you the truth about Indian movies, they're corny. He says they'll be ready to kill each other, and I say, I'll kill you. And you say, no, you'll kill me. Say, yeah, but let's have a dance first and make it up. And I guess that's the kind of entertainment. But I thought if he's the biggest movie producer, and he says they're corny, he ruined it for me, right? But he gave the people what they wanted. That's what they want. So Duryodhana and Dhritarashtra both had the philosophy of, I want what I want, when I want it, and it doesn't even matter if it's possible. I still want it. Aren't we glad we never thought that way? Or I want what I want, whether it's good for me or not. Anybody ever thought that way before? Yeah? I want it. They made up. Or last time it was bad for me, but this time will be different. Right? Last time I lost, Jarasandha came and attacked Krishna. Last time he lost, but this time he's going to win, right? Why is he going to win? Even some of these great personalities may have it some of them have this. They analyze the factors of activity. There's 4 factors of activity. There's the place of action, there's the senses, there's the action to be performed, and there's the endeavor, right? So they think if I got all those things in order, I'm going to win, right? And what's wrong with that? There's a 5th factor. That's the problem with that, right? There is a 5th factor. It's just like if you give somebody directions, but you leave the part out, the most important part, right? There's a 5th factor. That's the problem with the 4-factor theory to reality. There's a 5th factor. And it could be very difficult for you, and Krishna could say, you know what, I'll make that easy. I know of things like myself, I'm a very unqualified person, and I was very young at the time. I was 19, I looked about 13, and I was in a country where they were having a competition for who was going to kill me first, the natives or the government. And I was there with a sannyasi, and he left me alone and took the money. He left me a note that says, "Dear Kshudy, decided to split." I thought, well, I know Rupa Goswami says that we should reveal our mind, but he means more than this. So I'm here in this country owing a bunch of money to the book fund, and the government had told me to leave, and I had to stay there anyway. And there was no way that a movement was going to go on there. I'm unqualified, and when the security police were around me, I said, most of the world's against you. They said, that won't do you much good when the world's thousands of miles away, and there's 12 of us surrounding you with guns, will it? I said, we're going to make you leave the country. I said, that's all right. You make me leave now, but someday you'll be gone and I'll get to come back. Now that government got thrown out, and right at the immigration I can tell them. I can say, your last government threw me out because I mixed with different races and preached the philosophy that we're not this body, we're all the soul. And they told me that I had to leave, and I said, that's all right, someday you'll be gone and I'll get to come back. I said, now they're gone and I'm back. And they tell me right there, good for you. So at this point, it didn't appear that it could be possible. But Krishna made it possible for a movement to go on. He brought some other people, and he got rid of that government, and then things changed, and things went on. So they can be possible by Krishna's energy. Conversely, someone like Adolf Hitler thought he had the 4 factors in fashion. He was just about to take the main city in Russia, Moscow. He had a gun that would shoot a 14,000-pound shell that would destroy a whole block. But it would only go about 50 kilometers, and he was like 65 kilometers away. And it was November 7th. Don't worry, the winter's a month and a half away. The winter can't come early, right? Could it come early? You know what the proof that it could come early is? It did. If something happened, that's proof that it's possible, right? So the winter came early, and all their equipment bogged down, and they weren't able to take it, and eventually they lost this war. So Krishna, being the 5th factor, he can control those things, even when it appears to be against us, or even when it appears that someone else has everything in order. He can make it all fall apart. Kind of like when he went to, I was reading about how the government got changed in Mathura. There were some people being sent out to do some bad things, and finally there was a wrestling match arranged. So Krishna went to Mathura, and they made this big elephant come out against this little boy, and the people were horrified. He killed the elephant easily. And then these big wrestlers came out, but he killed them easily. And then Kamsa thought to fix things. He's already in trouble because of making offenses. So the solution is to make more offenses, right? So he says, well, fine, I'm going to kill Mother Yasoda and Nanda Maharaj and Vasudeva and Devaki. And then Krishna jumped over all of them and grabbed Kamsa and killed him, and that's the story of how the government got changed in Mathura, just like that. So we see here with Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana, they were given enough evidence to see that they couldn't win. You'd think he was shown the universal form, He says, you know what, you're God, I guess I better follow you. That's what he said, right? He says, I don't care. If you are God, I want to fight this war anyway. I want this kingdom. But what's the point? How's he going to win? And that's the point here, to see what Dhritarashtra is thinking. He has part of it right. He's asking a saintly person for the information because the saintly person asks him. But it's just like if you go to see Sachin Tendulkar and you talk to him about music and mathematics, you won't learn cricket. If you wanted to learn cricket, you need to ask him the questions about cricket. But Dhritarashtra is so attached to just what his sons want. But that's why this is being analyzed first. What is it that the enemy camp is doing? We see here later in this purport that the topics discussed by Dhritarashtra and Sanjaya, as described in the Mahabharata, form the basic principle of this great philosophy. It is understood that this philosophy evolved on the battlefield, which is the sacred place of pilgrimage, and it is spoken by the Lord himself when he was present personally on this planet for the guidance of mankind. Then it talks again about Dharma Kshetri. It's the place of Dharma, and it's the Kurukshetra, the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Dhritarashtra was highly doubtful about the possibility of his son's victory, and so he inquired from Sanjaya. Very strange, isn't it? He's having a doubt about it. He and his son both understand who Krishna is. So he's asking Sanjaya, what are they doing? He still wants what he wants. He knows that Sanjaya can see what's going on this battlefield. So see what the main thing here is that's wrong. He's asking Sanjaya, what did they do? He's wanting to know, how can they win this battlefield? I was listening to a lecture where Prabhupada was discussing how this is possible. Sanjaya was sitting in the room here, and he was viewing what was going on the battlefield somewhere else. This is like an extra sensory ability on the spiritual level, that he is able to see what Krishna is doing on the battlefield. You know, some of these things don't seem possible. Just like the concept of the television doesn't seem possible. That you get a box, they beam something into satellite, and then they put it back in the box, and you get to watch one of those movies where they do the dance while they're killing each other, right? But if you hadn't seen it before, it all wouldn't seem possible. But you have to get a connection. They have a couple companies here that have cable. They also provide internet and TV and what are they called? BSIF or something? What is it? So you have to connect with one of those, right? You have to connect with that to get this television, and then you can be able to watch it. We also have this in our heart. Just like on that, if you have the proper connection, you can watch this show, that talk, the news, whatever they have on Indian TV. You can watch it, right? So if somebody becomes a realized pure devotee, he can watch some, he doesn't watch that. He watches some real news. He watches things about how the government was changed in Mathura by Krishna. He watches things about how the government was changed in Lanka by Rama. He can watch these pastimes in his heart. And depending on if he's a devotee of Rama, a devotee of Krishna, a devotee of Vishnu, devotee of Krishna when he's in Dwarka, he can actually see these pastimes going on in his heart. Doesn't that sound better than anything that's on the TV? Yes? Must be even better than the cricket match? Is it? The people, I think you have to be one to like it. I've never seen that either, but the people who watch it, didn't they say that? That's where I heard about that Sachin Tendulkar. The people said, someone said, cricket is my religion and Sachin is my God. But I guarantee you that number one, you don't have to connect with that company and it doesn't require beachly electricity. But what you see with the pastimes of Krishna in your heart are better than cricket. I guarantee that. Without a doubt. You won't miss the cricket game. Because the games that Krishna plays are far better than anything that goes on. It's like a perverted reflection. Everybody wants to see somebody who goes out and wins the day. Right? So they pick someone who's the best player. But after a while, someone else comes along. Or the players get old. How old is old? Like in a sport like football, old is like 28, 29, 30. How old is old in cricket? Who knows? How old? It's got to be under 40, right? How old is Sachin? They told me he is the most famous player, although I don't know much about it. How old? Nobody plays after 40, do they? No, right? It's got to be like 20s, maybe 30s. But you don't see somebody, it's not golf, they do. Golf, they're out there 70, 75 years old, but and they get to that certain age, they're not playing. Because they may be a hero for a short time. But Krishna is different. Krishna is Adim Puranam Purusham, the oldest person, but he is also Navajovanamscha. It's like Isaiah Prabhupada say on one tape, you can get plastic surgery and use lipstick and do all kinds of things, but eventually material nature just won't allow. Eventually you just get older and it just gets that way. So this is the amazing thing, is that you would think, this is an amazing thing we see about Sanjaya. This is why he is asking him. He has gone to the right person to ask the wrong things. Aren't we glad we've never done that? It's like when people pray to God, you know, they say that. I remember, I'll tell you what the saying is later, but I was in Paris, France, and it was freezing cold. I said, Krishna, I'll make you a deal. If you get me out of this cold, I promise I'll never complain about heat ever. And it was like -5 degrees and it's snowing. This is like about March 20th. It's still winter there, it's still snowing. So I said, Krishna, you get me out of this cold, I promise I'll never complain about heat ever. So Krishna didn't hear that, right? 3 days later, a letter came from Prabhupada and it said, please send 3 devotees to India. So I was very quickly on the plane. Not a quick plane though, it was Afghan Airways that went from London, Paris, Rome, Athens, Cairo, Beirut, Tehran, Kabul, Delhi. And when I got off the plane, it was already 35 degrees Celsius. And so one of the devotees said, I gotta get my long underwear off quickly. So, but I promised I'd never complain about heat, ever. So the idea is they say, be careful what you pray for. You know why? What is it? You might get it. Because we think, I want this so bad and I just have to have it. Doesn't matter whether it's good for me or not, does it? Isn't this what Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana are thinking? I just got to have that. Doesn't matter if it's not mine. Doesn't matter if it's not good for me. It doesn't matter even if you're God and obviously it's not possible. I still want what I want when I want it. This is called the obsession of the materialist. We want to play God. We don't care if real God shows up, but I'm playing God. Pandraka showed up to Krishna. He says, I want you to give up the 4 symbols of Vishnu. He says, okay, how about starting with the disc? Again, be careful what you ask for, right? You might get it, right? He wanted the symbols and he got it, but it didn't do him any good. Eventually, everything with Krishna does some good. But we see here, Dhritarashtra has found somebody who actually has this clairvoyancy. He's a pure devotee. He knows who he is. He knows who God is. And he can view Krishna's pastimes and other things going on in other places. When you ask that person, what should I do? What would you think? Would you tell them to arrange everything just the way you want? Or would you ask them, what should I do next? Did you do that? That's just like the verse we see it. That Krishna explains later on. Tat vidi tat pani prashnena pari prashnena sevya upadekshanti te jnana kinani vas tattva darshanaha. That one should approach the self-realized spiritual master, inquire submissively, and render service to him. This self-realized person can impart knowledge to you because he has seen the truth, a tattva darshana. So here Dhritarashtra has found a tattva darshana, someone who has seen the truth, someone who can view things in other places, and you're asking him how things are going to work out towards the way you want. What is the use of having the advisor if you don't ask the right advice? What is the use of having the spiritual master if you don't ask the right questions? So quite often we don't know the right questions to ask, right? So wouldn't it be good if someone else asked the questions and then Krishna gave the answers and they made a book out of it? Would that be good? Good, because that's the Bhagavad Gita. Because we see that's what's showing here in the beginning. Dhritarashtra is there. He's there in front of a pure devotee. He's met Krishna. His son met Krishna and saw the universal form, but yet still he's inquiring, what about the welfare of my sons? How are they going to win this battle? And even though he knows, oh no, it's going on in an auspicious place, this can't be good, but is he willing to withdraw it? He wants his son's interest so bad, but is he really in this state of obsessing that we want what we want so bad? Can we really help the other people around us? We have to think in this way. Are we the same way? Do we think, oh, I just want what I want? Do I just want so much from my family that I end up putting them in a bad situation? Does he ever ask here, what should my sons do or what is best for them? Did he consider what's fair? That I should do something for the sons of Pandu, that actually it was theirs? He knows about Dharma, and it's the Dharma Kshetra. He knows that by taking away the kingdom, he'll have to suffer the result, but he wants what he wants. So we have to look into our own hearts and see, is this tendency there? We do want to have things turn out exactly the way we want them to. And I actually have a prayer that you can say that will make everything turn out exactly the way you want it to.
Yeah.
You know that?
Yeah, I've heard it.
What is the prayer?
Krishna, please let your will be happen.
That what you say is, today my wish is that everything will turn out the way that you arrange it to. Then Krishna arranges it the way that he does, and if that was my wish, I get it. If I'm saying, well, I'll be 50% surrendered, Krishna, half the time I'll let you do it your way. The other half, I'll force you to do it my way. Now, how will that work out? That doesn't work so well, does it? Someone said that if you want to make Krishna laugh, tell him what your plans are, right? Doesn't mean we don't have to have some plans in Krishna's service. But did you ever notice that sometimes Krishna has a different plan and other people have other impediments go on? So doesn't that prayer seem like an easier way? Krishna, today my wish, we can get our wish, but what I do is a dovetail. The dovetail and dove connect like that. We say, okay, if I want what Krishna wants, then I'm going to get what I want. If I want something different, I may have a hard time forcing him to get it my way, but I'm going to try anyway. Should I do that? I wouldn't be the first one, would I? I wouldn't be the last. Don't we all try a little bit that way? Thinking I have my desires and I'm going to figure out how to get it that way. We think this way. And then people become so disappointed. They don't go by the destiny. As Chitraketu was asking Maharaj, I'm here, I really want a son, Obviously he wasn't destined to have a son. He said, well, okay, you'll get a son, but this son will cause you great joy and great lamentation. Oh, well, that's good. And he has his own ideas. Well, that must mean that that I'll have a wonderful son, but he'll have his own ideas, and he won't do everything exactly as I want, but it'll still turn out good, won't it? So Angira gives him the special sweet for his wife, and the wife becomes pregnant, and he has a baby, but the co-wives who don't have babies become very upset, and so they poison the child, and he dies. And Chitraketu was in so much lamentation. And then both Angira and Narada Muni, they were showing a movie about this out there. Actually, it was in the TV show Abhay Taran, and Prabhupada's father was explaining to him, and they did the short skit of Chitraketu and the son dying and how upset he was. But then he took instructions from Narada Muni and Angira, and he was able to get through this. So the real thing we have to know is this: like if you go to a doctor, you don't tell the doctor, now doctor, I have this, I need this and this. You go to the doctor to have the doctor tell you what he needs you to do. And this is why, just to do things properly, we pick these things early. If you talk to a rich person and he's angry at you, and he wants to get you in trouble legally, does he say, I'm going to find an attorney, or does he say, I'm going to call my attorney? Which does he say? Which one? I'm going to call my attorney. You know why? He's already got one. So if you really think you need medical attention, you already have an attorney, you listen to them. If you need legal advice, you already have an attorney, and you listen to that one. For spiritual life, you already have a spiritual master, and you listen to them. Not to other people's. So they'll say, well, this one said this and mine said that. It's like if you have a doctor and the doctor gives you advice, you can't say, well, someone else's doctor gave them different advice. You have to listen to your doctor, your attorney, your spiritual master. And you have to find out what is really best for you. You don't go into the doctor and say, you know, I'd really like to have this disease instead of the other disease, and I'd really like to have this easy treatment instead of the other. Isn't this what Dhritarashtra is doing? He's actually found the Tattva Darshana. But he's trying to figure out how to get his sons in charge. And this is amazing how the Bhagavad Gita is beginning to see this way, and to also see what the opposition is thinking about us. And this is one of the things quite often we need to know what the impersonalists think, or we need to know what churches and things say against us, so that we can know how to counter this with other people, or how we can put out the proper information. And we see how wonderful this is. I saw this when seeing Srila Prabhupada. You could see the magic of a person that could see, and he could make things change just like that too. I remember when I was, one day the Arctic was a little bit difficult in Mumbai, because this was during the India-Pakistan war. When the planes would come to bomb, you would hear the sirens going, it's like a constant air raid siren. And then you'd hear all the lights be going off and people be screaming, Bunkaro, Bunkaro, because if the light's on here and the plane goes over, that's where they're going to drop the bomb, right? So this night they got very close. I went, Jayo, Jaya, boom, boom. In the Pakistan, they dropped the bombs in the water and turned around and went home, but the temple was on Warden Road in Mumbai, very close to the water, and the bombs were dropping, and you could see the tracer bullets go up in the air. Sounds like a lot of fun, right? No, it wasn't a movie. This was real. This wasn't Jayom Prakash and the Cordy Indian movie. This was reality. This was really going on. They were really dropping bombs, and you really saw tracer bullets going in the air trying to hit the planes. And I'm thinking, this is not good. So after Arctic, every evening I used to go in and put the water on Prabhupada's head and give Prabhupada the flower from the Arctic ceremony. And this day, after the Arctic, I went into Prabhupada's room. This is the day after that, and I was in big anxiety. I was thinking, maybe it's time to go home, right? So I put the water on Prabhupada's head and gave Prabhupada the flower. And a couple other devotees were there to walk us, and all of a sudden Prabhupada stopped and he goes, just a minute. And he looked up at me and he said, so everything is all right? All of a sudden I thought, and I felt this anxiety just lift, right? Like you open the curtain, right? Just lift. All of a sudden it's gone. I went, where'd that anxiety go? And I said, yes, Srila Prabhupada, everything is all right. And that was in the night. The next morning my mother called the temple there and she said, you know, I saw in the news that the bombs had been dropped there, and I wondered if you wanted to come home. I said, no, I'm okay here with Prabhupada. And so, the self-realized person has the ability to change our mind and our heart if we let them. You know, if I'm asking him, how do I stop this war, or what do I do now, or how do I get this, or I want this. Sometimes in preaching to other people, we have to be a little more merciful once. I remember once I was in our own mind, we have to be trying to render service and really get the mission of Bhagavad Gita. But sometimes with others, just a little start is good for them. Because we see later on Dhritarashtra had Vidura, his half-brother, came and talked to him. Eventually he went off and got liberated after some trials and tribulation. That when I was in South India, there was one disciple of Jayapataka Swami that Jayapataka Swami came, I need this, I need that, I need this. And I go, gosh, he seems to want to take so much more from the spiritual master than he wants to give. How do you reconcile this? And he says, well, sometimes you just have to think of the story of the miser and the Swami. That the miser was going, the sannyasi was going to beg. And he went to the Kripana, the miser's house, and he put out his cloth. And the miser went and got some coal and threw the coal in his cloth. And he said, thank you so much. The miser says, how can you thank me? I threw coal in your cloth. And the Swami says, because you are such a miser that any kind of giving you do at all is good. It doesn't even matter what it is. So sometimes I have to think that way. Anything they're doing at all is good. It doesn't even matter if I want to write it. I do this. It's like, boy, it's list for the spiritual master, and then this list to give, right? And sometimes we think that way with other people. You know, just like when we're distributing books. We don't tell them you have to buy the whole set and you have to surrender. Vaisheshika says that. Leave them with a good impression. When he goes to them and starts to talk, oh, I'm busy. He says, well, thank you for taking just a minute of your time. Or the one people says, I'm Christians and we can't take that book. He said, well, thank you for taking just a minute with us. The people came back later and actually bought a book and gave a donation and said, we like your attitude so much. So you thank the people just for a little. Say, well, you should have taken 2 books instead of 1. Well, thank you for just taking a look at that. Because we find, in one sense, it's a long road from the beginning of Karma Yuga to the end of Bhakti Yoga. But we find that if somebody gets a book and reads 1 page, 1 line, they eat some prasadam, they hear the chanting of the holy name, this saves them from the greatest kind of danger. Now, we may want more, but if this saves them from having to take birth as an animal, that may be a lot better, right? It's like, I don't know how they do it with prisoners here, but in America, they get out, they're on like parole. And as long as they stay good, they don't go back to a prison, right? Now they may not become the director of a company or a big saint or get something great, but hey, if they just didn't go back to prison, that's good, right? So it may not be the best that we can achieve, but for them, just the fact that they got saved from taking birth in a hellish planet or an animal kingdom is like that person just not going back to prison. We want more for our lives, but that's a good asset for them. So we should take instruction from this, seeing how Dhritarashtra was. He approached the right person, but he didn't ask for the right things. That we should ask from the spiritual master how we can purify ourselves. We forget sometimes. We think, oh, the spiritual master doesn't want us to do things like go out and take intoxication because he's trying to punish us and make us austere. No, we don't do those things because they're not good for us, right? Isn't it? Take a look, see the people on Sunday morning who've been out all late night on Saturday. Would you rather be in their condition? Do they look happy? No? Oh, I wish I hadn't done that. And so they never do it again, right? Is that how it works? No. Isn't this kind of like Dhritarashtra? Oh, that's so terrible. And I feel so bad on Sunday. I can't wait till the next time I drink again. Isn't it? That's the way those ones think. So it's not like these things are being told. It's like the child wants to get that. The child wants to run across the street and the parents say, hey, he's crying, but there's a car's coming to hit him. They don't see that. When I see someone giving the instruction, I take it. I remember we were out at the Vrindavan forest, And this one devotee came around the corner and goes like that, get out of the street. So I immediately just got out of the street. I didn't ask why or who are you telling me, you know, I'm twice your age. I got out of the street and around the corner comes a bull running at full speed, pulling the cart behind it, right? So I was glad I got out of the way, right? So when they tell you, when the spiritual master is telling us something that's good for us, some of the time we know and some of the time we don't. But we should be trying to follow that advice. We shouldn't be like Dhritarashtra, trying to get what we want at any cost when we end up losing it anyway. So is there any questions or discussions or further enlightenment on this idea?
I have a question.
And we have a microphone.
So who spoke the first verse of Bhagavad Gita? Krishna? Dhritarashtra? And who was it spoken to? Sanjaya.
Thank you, Prabhu. That was a very interesting class. My question, it's not so much a question, but a thought that, what I understood was that Dhritarashtra is very attached to his sons, and even though he knows that they will lose, but he still hopes that, maybe there's a possibility that they just may win. And he also has fear. My question is a little different. I was just wondering, even if Dhritarashtra would have asked his sons, would the sons listen to him? Would the son, Duryodhan, would he have listened to him?
Well, that's a different issue. And we see that Duryodhana, it's like they say, the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. You know, the parents have a certain consciousness and they bring a certain child into the world. I think Duryodhana is kind of a test tube baby, isn't he? Didn't they divide the womb up into different pieces and he was born outside the womb? Obviously he's of the same mind, but that's not the point we're making here. The point is the philosophy behind it. And in the same way ourselves, is if you had the sons and you tried to give them the right instruction, as long as you did the right thing, that's what you need to think. Not think, well, they may not listen anyway, so why even try? No, because Krishna tried with Duryodhana. That's why we have to try. That's why we see, just like when countries just go to war without any reasoning. I think maybe the India-Pakistan war was different because like America attacked Vietnam thinking that they were being attacked by planes, and it turned out it was just blips on the radar. And they attacked Iraq because of the trade center, even though Iraq had nothing to do with it. But when Pakistan kept shelling India, first they were killing millions of people in Bangladesh, and 10 million extra refugees came, which India didn't need 10 million extra people, obviously. Then they were shelling and killing a few people, and India did nothing. Then when Pakistan bombed, then India retaliated and freed Bangladesh. They waited. So what Krishna did with this is they fought the war, but he didn't just fight a war. And Krishna may know that Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana and the others may not listen, but he's showing us the example that you have to try. First you have to try to negotiate. First you have to try to reason with the people. It may be true that they won't listen. It may be true that they won't do the right thing, but at least you have to try. Just like in our ideas, Prabhupada said we would show our love by how willing we are to cooperate together. And when I was talking with one devotee how to work with someone else, he says, well, that person won't do this or he won't help. I said, that may be true, but first you have to try at least. It's probably not true, but first you have to give the opportunity. You have to try. So Krishna went to Dhritarashtra, he went to Duryodhana. He showed him part of the universal form, and Duryodhana understood that Krishna was God. If that didn't work, probably much wouldn't. And Krishna used that after he tried reasoning what's fair, asking for less than they deserved. And then saying, well, look, I'll show you something else that might make up your mind. So if that didn't work, but that's not the point. We have to do our duty.
And then they tried to arrest him.
Yeah. Good luck, huh? So that's what we should be thinking. You try to give the proper instructions to someone. You don't think, well, you won't follow this anyway, so I won't tell you. And that's what Krishna showed in that. Didn't he go to make all the efforts first? You find that when that's a proper war, first you make the efforts for peace, you try everything, and then when it's time to fight, you can fight thinking, well, I wonder if we'd given them a chance, would they have? So you have to give them the chance to find out, give them the proper instruction. We instruct many people, and some of them listen, some of them don't, and some of them get it later in life, and some of them get it in the next life, but they all at least benefit. And that's the part, to have that goodness of heart, like Ajahn Pataka was saying. Sometimes it's just like the miser and the Swami, that any kind of giving at all is good. So we can't be thinking, well, they won't listen anyway, so what difference does it make? Any other question? Yes.
And it's very simple, so pardon me, please. Was there a reason why Sanjaya was given the vision and not that Dhritarashtra given the vision to see this war?
Yes. You want to hear it? Because this is the whole point. This is why we approach a Tattva Darshan. Just like not anybody can connect the cable, it has to be the authorized representative who actually knows how to do this. Just like we gave the example about teaching cricket. Sachin Tendulkar can teach it, because he knows it. So Sanjaya is a realized devotee because he sees God in his heart. He can see these things going on. He has achieved this kind of a power. Dhritarashtra didn't. Dhritarashtra was blind physically. He was blind spiritually. So he couldn't see what was going on in his heart. He couldn't see what was going on even if he was there. So it's because he didn't have the proper qualifications. That's like saying, is there a reason why Prabhupada could see Krishna and we can't? Yes, there is. So then you want to approach someone that sees that person, isn't it? If you want to find out about somebody, you would talk to someone that knows that person. Another? Yes.
So it seems that Dhritarashtra was completely devoid of qualification. But what was his main qualification to approach the Sanjaya as a spiritual master?
Well, he's not approaching, just like I gave the example, that if you talked with a famous cricket player about music or something different, he's approaching the spiritual personality, but he's not asking them about the spiritual condition. He's trying to find out about his sons and what's going to happen to them. He has someone who can see the vision, and yet he's not asking for that. He's not saying, okay, you have the vision to see other things. What is the reality of life? What are Krishna's pastimes? He's saying, what are my sons going to do?
So it seems that Dhritarashtra actually misused the spiritual master by asking something.
Well, he's not thinking of Sanjaya as a spiritual master. Sanjaya is a person who's qualified to be a spiritual master. Sanjaya is qualified to be a great devotee, but he's using him as a secretary. But then if that's true, then why is he asking him? If he's just the secretary, he should be telling him, look, this is what my sons are doing, go do this. If he's in the inferior position, why is he asking him the questions? He obviously is confused. If he's the secretary, then he should be telling him what to do. If he sees that Sanjaya knows what to do, then he should be asking him for advice. He's approaching the realized person and telling them what they need to do. When someone tells you, okay, I'm seeing Krishna now, and you tell them, okay, I'll tell you what you need to do for your life. If they see Krishna, you should be asking them, not telling them. Some devotees would do this. They thought they knew more than Prabhupada in certain matters. I had one devotee who worked with Prabhupada. My mother was Prabhupada's attorney, and she wrote the book Trust with Prabhupada. Prabhupada had it set up so that the books were all centralized, but each temple was set up as a separate unit. And this is one of the things that go on in business. Some business, they say that everything should be centralized, right? Because with centralization, you have organization and everything is perfect. But if you have just each unit is separate, then you have individuality. So which one of those should you have? Which? Which one? Which one? You have the combination. You have to keep both ideas. That you have a central company or organization with central ideas and central philosophical and central things that you do, but each place has its own motivation. Each one of those has its problem, over centralization or overly just localization, not considering anything. So you have to keep both ideas in tension. So this, of course, this devotee came after he left and came to my mother and said that he thought Prabhupada was wrong on not wanting to centralize everything. And my mother said, no, Prabhupada was right and you were wrong. And he couldn't accept that. Now, not only was Prabhupada the spiritual master, but this person didn't even go to college. Prabhupada got several degrees, so let alone spiritually. And my mother had a law degree, so even if you forget the spiritual side, they're both more qualified than he is, but somehow he thought he knew more. So I see this he's not in the movement anymore. So you see how this can, how do we think we're more qualified than someone? If they have more spirituality and more education, well, where do I get the basis that I'm more qualified? I mean, what are the facts to present this? Don't I at least have to have a degree in something or be more spiritually advanced? If I'm behind in both the two, how can I be more advanced in both? It doesn't make sense. So this is what Dhritarashtra is trying to do, isn't it? He is seeing that Sanjaya is qualified, but he still wants to tell him what to do. He sees that Sanjaya can see, but then he wants to know, okay, tell me what's going on with my sons. Okay, I see you're very highly qualified. Now let me tell you what you need to do. Anything else? Parvati, any comment? Ram Prabhu, you have something? Anything else? So who spoke the first verse of Bhagavad Gita? Dhritarashtra. So he got to be in Bhagavad Gita. That's why if you're connected with Krishna, even when you do the wrong stuff, this one woman came and she was going to hurt Krishna badly. She even put poison on her breast. And so she was going to kill Krishna. Good luck with that, right? Anyway, so she put Krishna on her breast and he sucked the milk out in her life too. Then she expanded to like 12 miles along the Putana, right? But she got liberated for that. So, even if it's like, if you want to be mad at someone, be mad at Krishna. Go fight with Krishna, because at least any connection with Krishna at all is good. So any connection with Krishna is good, right? Even if people are going, it's funny. When I was first started coming to the temple, these kids would make fun of me, and they'd play in the trash can, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And they did this right by one of our neighbors' houses, and they did it right by the window where this one woman had a baby. And they did this every day for a couple of weeks when I was first going to temple, going, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And they chant like that, right? Well, the window they did outside, that baby became a devotee baby. So, right? And you see, anything you do towards Krishna, he takes more steps to you. I went to see his bands play at the Orange County Fairgrounds. This is a couple of years ago. 1967, that's a couple of years ago, right? At the end, the people from the Mystic Arts world who came from Laguna Beach, they got together and they were singing this song. I said, what is this song? They said, well, there's a Swami in LA, and he sings this song. And his name is Prabhupada, and the temple's on Pico Boulevard. This is before Watsika was La Cienega. Before that was Pico. I didn't even go to Pico Temple. I went to La Cienega in January of 70, so I said, chant this with us. So I was chanting it with him with ecstasy, and there was all the people from Mystic Arts World, thousands of people gathered around, the devotees there. But they'd heard this chanting from Prabhupada, right? And so many people became devotees later. But what happened, because I'd done the chanting, then when people hear the chanting, then Krishna arranges other things in their life. What happened the next week, a friend of mine was shooting at these animals, and then he squished a dove with a rock. The dove is that kind of peaceful bird. It's not the kabutar. Sometimes if anyone says, oh, kabutar, I said, no, that's not a kabutar. The dove is very peaceful, and they always stay together in a pair. They never leave each other. So he squished the one with the rock. And I said, oh, that's a cruel thing to do. And he said, well, you eat meat, don't you? I said, yeah, don't most of us? He said, well, how many animals do they have to kill for you to eat meat? I said, probably a lot. He said, so is it any worse for me to kill one more bird than for you to eat all those animals? I said, you know what, you're right. He said, it's okay for me to kill the bird? I said, no, I'll never eat meat again. Now, a couple of years ago, when I reminded him of that, he was mind blown that I hadn't eaten it since then. But he made it so clear. They have to kill them for you to get this. What's the difference? And that came about. Krishna arranged that just a few days after I chanted with the devotees. So when people get books or they do the chanting, things happen in life. They come around. You know, I've read in teachings of Lord Chaitanya that bhakti means you just pray to God for some way to develop real love. And Laguna was kind of a special place. Even the hippie friends I had said, you know, someday for real spiritual life, we have to give up illicit sex and intoxication. We were probably taking girls to the hot tub and had beer and marijuana, but still the idea was there, right? That someday we have to give it up, you know? It's kind of like, what was it, Thomas Aquinas, or was it Augustus, the saint? Augustus said, he said that, God, please make me chaste to you, but just not today, right? So it's like, yeah, I want to give these things up, but just not now, right? I'll do that later. So I thought about this. I have a special meditation rock I go to, and I would pray for some way to develop love of God. And on January 5th, 1970, all of a sudden I got this real strong inspiration that if you want love of God, you have to give up illicit sex and intoxication. Because the devotees had also been planning this. They would go into the Mystic Arts store and they would preach there and talk to people and stuff. So, you know, I'd heard this from them and the people who'd heard from them. So I thought, wow, that's kind of a tall order. I know what I'll do. I'll wait till the summer comes, and then after the summer, and I've had a few more girlfriends and a few more parties, then I'll give it up. And I thought, no, if it's a good idea, I should do it, and if it's not, I shouldn't. So I said, all right, God, I'll give up illicit sex and intoxication, and you send me a way to develop love for you. And I thought, well, how long is it going to take to find out? A week, a month, a year? And I opened my eyes, and as far away as that door was a devotee in saffron walking towards me, and I thought, Hare Krishna, this is what I'm supposed to do. And he came up, I said, what are you doing down here at the beach? He said, well, we were up on the hill doing our chanting, singing, and all of a sudden I had this uncontrollable compulsion to come down to the beach. He said, would you like to come chant with us? I said, I think that's exactly what I'm supposed to do. So, if we take a step to Krishna, he takes one to us, although that was obviously more than one step. But I think when we stand at the crossroads in life, you know, what am I going to do next? Maybe we can't always make big steps, but can I chant a little attentively? Can I do the right thing? Can I try to help somebody else? Can I at least try to do a little more of Krishna's plan? Maybe I can't be like the pure devotee, but can I be a little more pure? Can I at least put Krishna's interest first? This is why when we have things to do in the day, they say to do your main priorities first. This is why I like to get up and go do my rounds, get the rounds done, and then I can do some reading, and then I can take care of the most important business. And if something gets left behind, it isn't the important business, it isn't the reading, and it certainly isn't the chanting of rounds. You start with the most important thing first. You don't start, wake up, do laundry, then go off and dilly-dally and talk, and then do some business, and then chant. It should be the other way around, so that if you didn't have time for the laundry and to do a little dilly-dally talking, you know, that's okay. Sometimes that's okay when the time is right and the class is over and the other things are done and you associate with the devotees and talk. But it shouldn't be when the time to do the rounds or I have something important I have to take care of. They take care of those things first. There's another thing in the brain called the reticuloregulator. What it does is it decides, you tell it what's important. So if I'm sitting here and I'm chanting or I'm reading and I say that's important, even if I drank a lot of water, it says, oh no, you can wait because this is more important, right? Or I hear the phone ringing, oh no, this is more important. If you say, oh, this is important, then the mind says, okay, this is important, concentrate on that. But if you tell the mind, oh, what about later, and what about this? Maybe I should look at the TV or the internet while I'm chanting. Then the mind says, okay, that's important, this can go in the background, right? But it only repeats what you tell it to do, right? It's like on that TV, it only goes to the channel you change it to. If Krishna was on one channel and cricket was on the other, you can't say, well, it's not my fault, cricket was on the TV. No, Krishna was also there. At least in this one, right? So we have to remember that what we tell it, it's going to repeat. That's why when we want something, it's easier. That's why the people who say they want to quit smoking, which is hard because I was never really a smoker, but if the person, every time the desire comes and they say, oh no, I don't need that. If the desire comes, oh, I need that, then they've told themselves the wrong message. So we should be chanting, thinking, okay, this is important, do it. Then when it's time to take care of that business, then we do that. Maybe we do have to be on the computer later, send an email, do this. And sometimes you can do a couple things at once. You know, you can talk on the phone and fold envelopes if it's not real important. Sometimes you can do them, but they shouldn't be doing important tasks that you're doing. But that's the idea, is to do the first things first and to concentrate on them. Because you give the brain that message. What message you give it, it repeats. It's not the brain's fault. You gave it the message. All right. Hare Krishna.